Hey guys, this is continuation of my AWS series of videos which I am making for my friend. Again, this is not going to be, just to reiterate, it's not going to be a very much of an in-depth AWS sessions which you'll probably find a lot on the internet already. I'm just recording my screen as I'm making some quick nuggets for my friend who is planning to deploy some network-based routers and firewalls on AWS, right? Cool. So that being said, this video we are going to look into the service which is EC2, right? EC2, you can see there are a bunch of services, lot of services. We have looked into IAM. We are going to look into the EC2, right? Very evident. It's basically elastic compute, right? So you basically if you wanna spin up a VM, right, on your AWS, this is the place where you go, or this is the service which you use, and you can see this comes under compute. So let's go to EC2. Right now I don't have anything running, so what do? Let's go about creating a VM, right? Creating an instance. So let's go and launch instance. Now here you'll get a lot of options, right? You can select anything and you can spin it up, but always make sure that, because we are in the free tier, right, make sure that it has the free tier eligible attached to it, right? Now what we will use is, obviously we'll use the Linux 2, right? Linux 1 or whatever this was used for a long time. I think recently they changed it to Linux 2 and added a bunch of things. I'll talk about AMIs a bit later. I'll tell you what they are, but for now think of this as a pre-packaged image with everything ready for you. So we're gonna click on this and we're gonna select it. Now it's asking me what kind of a machine I should run this on, right? What kind of a machine should I run this on? A very powerful machine with, like, I don't know, maybe 16 CPUs with 64 GB RAM? Probably not needed. If you need that, yeah, go for that. But in my case, I'm just doing a tutorial, so I will choose the one which is eligible, which I'm eligible for in my free account, which is free tier eligible. So make sure you select T2 Micro. T2 Micro is the only one which is eligible for your free tier. So select that. I'm going to go to the next step. Nothing to be configured here. These are all pretty straightforward stuff, right? It's asking me number of instances. If you want 2, you can select 2 here and 2 would get created. VPC, the virtual private cloud, right? So we'll probably talk about this maybe later in the videos, right? But basically think of this as a small private network in which your EC2 instance, right, or the VM will basically reside. Apart from that, you can do some some advanced concepts like placement groups and all of that. You can use and select where your VM is going to be placed, which data center is going to be placed. Right now we are using the region which is Mumbai, right? Other things are like we'll talk about the user data later, but for now I think we'll not do any changes here. We are good to go to the next step, which is adding storage. So adding storage is, again, obviously your VM would need some storage, right? Without that it would not work, right? So you can basically go and add increase the amount of GB here if you want, right, for your need. I'm going to keep it as 8 for now. Everything looks good. It's asking me to add some tags. You can add some tags and I'll show you where these tags will appear. For now I'm going to say name, probably name, right? And I'm going to say my first let's probably say my first Linux instance or something, or let me just change that. I'm going to say my first instance. I think that should be good, right? So, and we're going to say configure security groups. Now security groups are nothing but firewall rules, right? So these are the rules what you put here basically dictate what is going to dictate the firewall rules for your instance, because at the end of the day when you create an instance you would not want to give access to everyone, right? Because if you give access to everyone, probably within the next few minutes you'll probably have a crypto algorithm running on your VM, right? So you would want to restrict access to people and that basically restrict the TCP ports and with which you can connect to the instance. So that's what you do here. Now we can create a new one, right? We can create a new security groups. I probably have something already, maybe. Yeah, I have something. Or maybe I'm just going to create a new one anyway. So I'm going to create a new one. I'm going to call this let's call this what? Let's call this my first SG, right? Security group. I think that makes sense. I'm going to put the same thing in the description as well for now. And you can see the default rule which is there is SSH. I think that's enough for us for now, right? So that's good. Wait, so I've created a new rule. I think do you want to add anything else? No, SSH is good, so I'm going to say review and launch, and it's going to give me a bunch of things which I can review. Like for example, I've created a T2 micro, the storage is EBS, we call that as EBS. So various services in AWS, right? EC2, EBS, and the various services, they have different names. Anyway, so all of this looks good, so I'm good to launch, right? Okay, so this is important again. So it's going to ask me, do you want to create a key pair? Because using this, you will be connecting to the machine. Now, I already have something, I guess, but I'll create a new one anyway. So I'm going to say create new e pair, and I'm going to say EC2, and I'm going to say bits, please. I think makes sense. And once you create that, you'll have to download the key pair. There you go, it got downloaded. I'm going to say launch instances. Something failed. My first already exists. Okay. So back to review. So let's go and fix that. I think there was already a security group. So let's go and change this to something else, right? Change the name to SG1. So now let's review and launch this. I'm going to use that. Select it, launch. There you go. So now it's going to launch. So we'll have to go to the view instances page, and you can see the VM is ready to be launched. It's booting up. We have to wait for a few seconds. I'm going to pause the video until that comes up. Alright, looks like it is running. You can see the instance is up. You can see it is running here. A bit information about the instance. It's going to give me the public IP using which I can access it. And it also has a private IP as well, right? This is going to be the IP using which, if you are inside the AWS network, you probably can access using this. This is basically the VPC network, right, which I was talking about, the virtual private network. And this is the private IP using which you identify this VM. Anyway, so this is the public IP with which we will access. But before that, let me also show you that you can at any time, go and stop the VM, reboot it, or terminate as well, right? Bunch of things. So now, once you have created VM, next step is you need to connect to it. There are two options to connect to it. One is you can click on this connect here, and it's going to say EC2 Instance Connect browser based SSH, right? So I can say connect. And by default, it also uses the username called EC2 user. That user gets created when the VM is generated. So you can see this is the VM, right? It has everything with me. So this is how you can connect to the VM from the browser. But if you're not very happy with that, you can go with the traditional approach, which is SSHing into it. So I'm gonna get to my terminal. I think that file which we downloaded should be here, right? The key pair file, right? The .pem file. So how do you SSH? I'm going to say SSH my -i, and let's give EC2, right? And remember that user. I forgot that user. What is the user? It was basically EC2, right? If I'm not wrong. Let's see. So it was EC2 -user at, and now you'll have to give the IP address. Let's go and copy. Let's copy this IP address here, and let's paste this. There you go. It's trying to connect via SSH. It failed. Why did it fail? Looks like my key file did not have the permission. So I'm gonna do chmod 0400, right? That should work. If I'm not wrong, is that yeah, 0400 looks good. So I'm gonna change the permissions of that key pair file. Let's try this again. Awesome. We are inside, guys. We are inside our VM which we just now created. Look, right? There you go, EC2 user. So we are inside the VM. So we have now successfully created a VM. We have created a EC2 instance, and we have been able to SSH into it, right? And we saw there are two ways to SSH into it. Cool. Now next, what else? Let me just go back here. Yeah, so I think there was already a rule. That's why it was shouting. So let me just get rid of this older rule. Let's delete the security groups. Yeah. Okay. So I have just one now. Okay. Cool. Now coming to the next part, what do we do next? Let's see. So again, like I said, there are a lot of other things which you can explore inside your, like for example, this is my security group, right? If I click on this, you can see the various rules associated with this will be seen here. In the inbound direction, it is allowing only SSH, whereas in the outbound direction, it is allowing all the traffic, right? But you can obviously customize this as your needs, as per your needs. That's about the security groups. Now we will talk a little bit about Let's go back to my instances. Where is my instance? Sorry, here. So if you look at this instance, it has one IP here, right? This is the IP with which we were able to connect. But this IP will change if I stop this machine, right? And if I restart it, this IP will change because it's not a permanent IP, right? So AWS just picks up one IP available from the pool and it is going to give it to you. But if you want this to be permanent, what you got to do is you got to go to the Elastic IP section here, and you can click on allocate new address, and obviously select, if you already have an IP which you own, you can mention that here, or if you want Amazon to pick one from its pool, and click on allocate and select the IP, and that's the end of it. I'm not going to do that because probably it's not going to be free. It's going to charge my accounts. I'm going to not do that, but that's how you can kind of like make a particular IP persistent, right? You can make the IP stay there forever, permanent IP, right? So that's the concept behind that. That being said, what else? So we will next look into, let me think, let's do something cool, right? So we have this instance, but this instance is not doing anything right now. It's a very basic instance. So what I'll do is I'll launch a web page out of this. So how do we do that? So let's go back to my terminal, right? And I'm going to run a bunch of commands which are pretty straightforward commands, right? So first let's go down to the root. So I'm the root now, right? So let's clear the screen a bit, right? So once you are the root, you should be able to run the yum update, right? Command to kind of update all the packages. Looks like there is nothing. Let's now install the Apache server, right? And that's done using yum install httpd x8664, and that's going to install what? The Apache server, right? Because we want to test that. We want to not just have a dumb Linux machine, rather we want to run a web server on it, right? Now once we have installed it, let's go and start it. Sorry, yeah, let's clear the screen a bit. Yeah, so now once we have installed it, let's go and start it using the command systemctl start, right? Similarly, I can just change the start to enable. So if I make this enable, what it is going to do is it is going to start this Apache server every time the machine reboots, right? So making the command persistent again. And that should be it, guys. Now let's see what would have happened. So let's go to this particular IP and let's see if we can open this. Can we? It's not allowing, right? It's not allowing. Why? Because in the security groups, right, for this particular instance, where's the security group? Should be there somewhere here. Let's see. Or probably we could just, okay, see, security groups, right? So you can see the security group here, and the inbound direction we were allowing only SSH. But right now what we are doing, we are trying to access it using HTTP. So we will have to add one more rule here. So let's add one more rule, and we'll say HTTP probably. There you go. So I've added, probably let's remove this IPv6. I really don't want this. And I'm just gonna write a comment saying HTTP, right? So there you go. I've added a rule, right? Which means now it should allow the HTTP traffic to flow inside, right? So let's go and try this again. Probably let's wait for a few seconds because it would take some time for the policy to be applied, for the rule to be applied, right? So let's see, we have updated this. This is the one which we are using. Let's go back to the instances. Yeah, that is running. And there you go. Now we have the test page, right? The Apache page is running. But this is not a really nice page. It's just a test page. What we'll do is we'll just customize this, right? We'll say echo hello. I don't know, maybe something like hello from bits please, right? So let's do that, and let's pipe this where into the where folder, www html and index page, right? So once we do that, now if I go back and refresh this guy, there you go, we are getting a customized page, right? So that's what I wanted to show you here. We can again change this. Let's say we could run something like this, right? Not just hello from bits please, rather we can say hello world from the host name of the device itself, right? And you pipe this, and if you refresh it here, that should get reflected. There you go. Now we are basically telling hello world from, this is like the host name of that particular EC2 machine which we have, right? Cool. So we kind of, what did we do just now? We kind of created a machine. We also made sure that we were able to run a web server on it, right? We looked into security groups, we looked into some basic stuff. Now the next thing which I want to show you while we are here is that there is a very interesting feature in AWS called user data feature, right? Which means we don't really have to run these commands, right? Whatever we did here, right? All these installations and all of that, we don't have to do it manually. Rather, we can tell AWS to do it for us, right? So for that, let's go and shut this machine down. Let's terminate. I don't want this one, right? So while that is turning down, let's launch a new machine. It's going to be the pretty similar one, right? Configure instance, but this time we'll use this section called, under advanced details, you have something called user data, right? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take those commands which we ran manually, I'm going to paste it here, right? So that's okay. So, but before that, because it's a shell script, it'll run as a shell script, you'll have to call the bash, right? And I'm going to plug in all the various commands which we ran before this, right? The yum update, the yum install, systemctl start, system enable, and then the hello world. Basically these are the commands which we ran earlier, right, manually. But now I'm gonna ask AWS to run it when the machine boots up, right? So I'm gonna say add storage again, add tags, probably maybe we can add a tag with say name, and I'm gonna say this is my second machine. Second, I'm just gonna say second, right? I'm too lazy to type a lot, so so that's good. One tag is good. So here we'll probably need, we can use the existing security group which we created earlier, which is my first security group 1, and we are good to go and launch, guys. So let's launch this. And okay, before launching, it's asking me for the key pair. I'm going to use the earlier one, acknowledge, launch. Cool. So now it should basically launch the second instance, but this time, right, we will not have to do any manual work. Rather, once the instance is up, when we are logging into, or when you are going to that particular IP address, it should show the same thing, right, without me having to do anything manually, right? So it will take a couple of seconds for this to come up, so I'm going to pause the video and let's see when it comes back. All right, looks like it's all running now. See, we are on the second machine. Let's go down and see what is the public IP with which I can access this. I'm going to say copy, and let's go to a new window, and new tab, and let's go and check this out. There you go, right? The same thing what we did earlier manually, now we have been able to accomplish the same thing by automating it, right? We put all the commands into a file, into the user data section, and AWS really picked it up from there and started running the instance, right? And basically it ran all those commands when the instance came up. This is pretty handy, right? You don't have to really sit and do it manually. And if you have that script, whatever bunch of commands, you can now run it, on tens of different instances when it boots up. Awesome. So we did some cool stuff. Let's go and see what do we do next. Let's close this, probably close this. Okay, so now probably I'm not going to cover this in detail, obviously, because it's, like I said, this is not going to be an AWS session. Rather, it's me just playing around with the various services of AWS. But something which stands out here is there are two things. Instance types, right? There are different types of instances. We are using T2 micro, right? But obviously there are different types of instances depending on your use case, right? There are what we call as spot instances, right? Over here, probably let's go to the documentation. So this is a place in documentation you can go and read a lot about different types of instances and stuff. You can see there are on-demand instances, you have reserved, spot instances, dedicated host, and dedicated instances, right? So there are different types of instances based on your need. In simple terms, if I have to tell you, is probably dedicated on-demand are the instances which we just now created, right? Wherein you directly come to AWS console and you create an instance based on your need. Those are your on-demand. Probably they are costlier ones. They are the most costliest, I would say, right? Reserved ones are kind of cheaper because you, well in advance, you go and there's a reservation period, right? Probably for like 1 to 3 years. So you basically in advance you go and tell Amazon that, look, I want so many machines for 3 years, and Amazon will give you like a huge discount on them, probably like 50-60%. I don't know what's the exact number, but he'll give you a huge amount of discount, right? Because you are paying upfront for like 3 years. So Amazon is going to give you a discount. Whereas the third one is spot instances. Now spot instances are very cool. I really like these. So they are probably the cheapest ones, right? Let me show you how they work, right? So under spot request, if you go under spot request here, this is the place where you can request for spot instances. And let's look at the pricing history, right? Let's change this to last 3 months. What you can see here is the on-demand price is $0.03 per hour, right? For a A1 minimum. So let's increase this to probably M5 too large, or maybe something different to prove my point. Okay, there you go. So maybe something like M4 large, right? It's a big machine. And you can see the on-demand price is $0.10 per hour, which is, yeah, that's the actual price. But look here, the spot instance price is way low, right? It's pretty low. It's just 0.03. Now, how is it that cheap? The reason is these are kind of instances which Amazon has in bulk, or in like these are the extra instances which they have, right? And no one is using it. So they give you some very cool, let's say, discount, all right? It's more like your offer, right? You basically get like up to 90% discounts with spot instances, but there's a catch. So how this really works is you have the on-demand price, which is here, and this is the spot instance price, right, which is almost constant for like 2 months and then slightly increased here, but still it's kind of stable. Majority of the time it's stable. Now in spot instance you have to bid, right? You know how auctions are there, right? You bid for a particular item. So similarly you're bidding for this spot instance by telling your price. So your price could be 0.04, 0.05, 0.06, whatever it is. That's your price. So you bid your price, and then until and unless your price is greater than the current market price of the spot instance, right, your spot instances are going to be running, right? But in case in future sometime, right, if the price of the spot instance, the market value increases beyond what you have set, if you have set it at 0.05, and if this guy increases beyond that, then your spot instance will be removed, or Amazon is going to take your spot instance away, right? It's going to shut it down. Obviously it's going to give you like 2 minutes of grace periods. It's going to tell you, hey, look, we are going to shut down your machine. I think the grace period is around 2 minutes, but yeah, that's it. I mean, after that 2 minutes your machine is going to go away, right? There are obviously different ways to prevent that, and a lot of in detail stuff which you can check out in the documentation, right? Best practices and how do you request the spot fleet and all of that. But that's the basic funda, right? The cheapest ones, I would say, spot instance, they are the cheapest ones, but they do come with a catch. It's not very reliable, I would say, because at any point of time in future, if the market price increases, then your machines are gone, right? Cool. So that's spot instances. And then you have what instances we call as, okay, we talked about reserved, right? And then you have dedicated, right? Let's look at the dedicated host. They are kind of like they are physical dedicated servers for your use. Now who would use this? Obviously I would not use it, but probably if you're like a financial organization, right, where you have a lot of compliance and regulatory requirements, then in which case you probably can use this, right? So there might be some applications which comes with BYOL, right? That is bring your own license. So in that case, you can take a server from Amazon, take your license from somewhere else and deploy it and use it, and you get more control on this host, right? With the EC2 instance, you really don't have any control as to at the socket layer, right, or the network layer, right? You can't because it's an instance, it's a VM which is running in Amazon's data center. But if you want more control on a machine, right, at a different layers, then you can probably go for a dedicated host where you get more control, right? You get control on where that machine is going to be placed, right, in which rack it's going to be placed and stuff like that. So then you can go for a dedicated host. Dedicated instances also is kind of very similar to this with slight tweaks, right? You can again check that out. So I would say dedicated host is the one which is giving you the maximum flexibility, right, with respect to any Amazon resource, but then obviously it is the costliest one as well, right? Cool. There's a very interesting page, I think, put up by some GitHub user. He has put up a nice page called EC2 Instances.info, and you can check out any of your EC2 instance and it will give you the current price, right? Look here, it's also giving you a very good comparison as well. So it's going to give you the on-demand cost, it is going to give you the reserved cost, right? Similarly for Windows on-demand and Windows reserved, right? So before purchasing anything, you can quickly have a look at this. And again, this information is available on AWS as well, but you'll probably have to do a lot of research, right, using the console. But here this guy has put up all the information in one single page for you to quickly consume it. You can check this out as well, right? So keep these two things handy, right? These are your instance, this is your documentation talking about various instances, the cost involved, how do you request them, the life cycle of instance and all of that. And this is basically a quick view at the current prices. Cool. So now that we have talked about that, what do we do next? Have I talked everything which I need to tell you guys here? Probably not. Okay, so what else? Okay, so the other thing is, probably let's go back here in the instance types, right? I mean, we talked about the instances, but the instance, there are what we call as instance types as well. This is purely from a technology perspective, right? We talked about whatever we talked about till now, which was spot instances, reserved instances, dedicated instances. Those are all you know, from a money perspective, right? From a budget perspective, right? So how do you launch new instances and save money? So with that perspective, those were the types. But from a technical perspective, there are different types of instances, and they are called general purpose, compute optimized, memory optimized, storage optimized, and bunch of them, right? You can see here. Now the one which we are using, the T2 micro, is obviously a general purpose, but if you, depending on your applications, depending on your needs, you can go for a specific one, right? Because you might have an application which is heavy on the CPU, then you can go for compute. Heavy on the memory, then you can go for this. So yeah, different types again. Remember when we were selecting the T2 micro, similarly you get to select all these various options. So again, something for you to do research on. In our free tier, all of these are not supported. Only the T2 micro is supported, so we can't really test any of these. Sweet. Next, what else? Let me also talk a little bit about the AMI. I really like the AMIs, right? So what is AMI? So where is my instance? So this is my instance which is running right now. Is it running? Yeah, it's running. That's fine. Let's launch a new instance. But you see here on the left hand side, there is something called My AMI, and you have AWS Marketplace. Now we earlier used this particular AMI, right? Now AMI stands for Amazon Machine Image. This is something built by the Amazon guys itself. But if you want to probably run something else, let's say we want to run, let's see what AMIs are published by Cisco. So you basically have, let's see, under Marketplace, right? You see there are a bunch of Cisco AMIs. You have the ASAV, we have the CSR router, FMCV, and bunch of our Cisco's virtual products are available here. So you can now select any of these and launch as well, right? Just make sure, you know, if they are available for you to play around in your free tier. I'm not sure if they are, but if they are, then you can obviously select one of these guys and launch as well. There are some community AMIs as well, folks who have created these and published it in the community for people to play around. But that is what we call as a Amazon Machine Image. Now you can create your own AMIs as well, right? You can create your own AMIs and you can even sell it, right? So you imagine, in our case, remember we have created this, we have created a, where is that? We have created one, let's go back. We have this one instance, right? So you can create your own AMI as well, right? No one is stopping you from doing that. So we can try that. So let's go and select this my first instance. Let's click on image, right? And I'll have to probably stop this. Sorry, that is terminated. So I'll have to do it on the second one, not this one. So let's click on this and the image. There you go. So we can create an image, right? And once we do that, we will probably have to give some name. I'm going to say my Apache, right? because it's nothing but Apache server, right? Nothing else. I'm gonna put the same thing for the description as well. I'm too lazy to type, but you see, it's basically going to create a snapshot now of your machine, and we can basically then go and say create AMI. There you go. Create image request received. Any snapshots backing your new EBS can be managed through the screen. Okay, that's fine. So we have created AMI for my machine as well, right? Now if I go to my AMIs, there you go. It's still pending because it's not completely created yet, but once it is created, this status should change to available, right? And once that is available, I can launch new instances using this, right? I can just right click here and I should be able to launch new instances using that. And there is also an option to kind of publish this particular AMIs in the Amazon marketplace as well, so that other folks can use it. And you can either publish it in the community, in which case it becomes free. You can publish it in the public you can publish it in the Amazon marketplace, in which case people will be able to buy it and use it, right? So that's about AMIs, and I think we've covered probably almost everything which we needed. What else is there? Okay, maybe one more thing I want to touch upon is the network interfaces, right? Right now, if you look at our instance, right, you see we have one instance running, right? And we have how many network interfaces? We just have one network interface, right? So look here, we just have one network interface. Now this is probably might be enough for me, but if you can create more network interfaces as well, depending on your need, right? So in that case, you can probably go down to network interfaces here, and you'll be able to create a new network interface, right? And once you create the new network interface, you can go and attach it to the VM as well. That way your VM will have more than one network interface, again depending on your use case, right? In my case, this one is enough, but if you want more, you can add more network interfaces, because if you're creating a firewall, if you're creating a cloud router, then you might need multiple network interfaces, so you have the option for doing that as well. All right, so that's pretty good. Let's go back and see if our AMI is available. This is what I was telling. We can launch it, and a new machine would launch as well from here. Okay, awesome. So that being said, I think we are good. That's mainly what I wanted to cover in this video. Like I said, a quick introduction to EC2. We talked a little bit about a lot of things, right, which is pretty cool, and hope it was useful. Do come back. Bye.